What are the biggest changes you've seen in terms of how companies are now approaching social media?
The biggest change is, I think, or one of them is, well, here's a better way to answer it. The biggest changes I've seen are the disruptions that take place between a content or a service provider and the consumer, because typically there has been a middleman who does something. There's a middleman when I hear about when I watch a Colts game, there's a middleman giving me the news. But what if I had somebody at the stadium who's tweeting the score, tweeting the big plays? Or NFL Mobile, I can look on my phone and I can see the plays, or they even let me listen to the radio now on NFL Mobile. I don't need the TV stations. I don't need a TV station to show me ads in between plays, because I'm getting this without them. And so the person being disrupted is that TV station and the advertisers. I don't need magazines to tell me what I should buy, because I follow those brands on Facebook, or I follow them on Twitter, and they send me stuff to write about on my blog. And I read other bloggers telling me about that. So, the advertisers are being disrupted. The advertising agencies are being disrupted because they're finding ways to reach me directly.
Okay. So how do you see from now, and you talked about 15 years ago, how they predicted the internet. How do you see social media evolving from this point that it's at now?
I almost think that what we're going to see is a solidification of the use of social media. The tools will change. There will be a day we don't have a Facebook, but only because something bigger and better replaced it. I mean, it was 15 years ago. I joined AOL. I joined when it was still America Online, and I was member 832,000 something. By the time they hit their peak, they were up to like 10 or 12 million people. I was still below the 1 millionth person to join, and to get the software, you had to dial up and call into a number, and it took 90 minutes to download. And they became big enough that they bought a media company, and then things happened, and the media company spun them off. So, that was AOL. That will happen to Facebook one day. But what's not going to change is that now people want to talk to each other. There are ways there are tools that have democratized communication, so we don't depend on 3 network news stations or 4 network news stations to tell us what's going on. We're telling each other what's going on. And so that's just going to be more of that. And the new tools are going to develop to make that possible. Phones are going to become faster and bigger. I've got more computing power on my phone now than the Apollo moon lander, or the Apollo rocket had in a phone. I've got more computing power on that phone than I had when I was in college, when the whole university had, as a university mailing and data storage system. I've got more storage in that phone. That's only going to get bigger, and so we're going to see more and more people who are shooting videos on phones and uploading them to their blogs, and they're reporting news. And so everything that we're doing is kind of coming to a point where everybody's going to be talking, reporting, marketing, providing information, consuming information, whatever it is.
Do you see social media playing more of a role in politics, as the future goes on, and how, and what other ways do you think that might take place?
I think politics are going to be a big part of it. I think we saw social media play a part in the London riots, for good or for bad. And I said this when the riots were going on. If social media helped bring about revolution in the Arab countries, social media helped contribute to the riots in London, because people were on Facebook saying, hey, we're going to meet here, and hey, we're going to go loot here, and that's how they caught a lot of those people too. But we'll see more of that kind of communication. We'll see people on the grassroots level putting their support and their own personal clout and influence behind a candidate, and stumping on behalf of that candidate on social media.
Okay. What do you think makes social media more so than, especially at this point in time, more than traditional media, such a powerful tool?
A lot of it has to do with the model of communication with traditional advertising, traditional broadcast, any kind of media. It's one to many. I write a newspaper column, thousands of people read it. They don't like what I read and they shout at their newspapers, and I don't hear it. They write a letter to the editor if they want to take the time to do that, and they tell the editor, I don't like this, and the editor may or may not tell me. And so it's one to many, but it is not many back to the one. Mm-hmm. They can't even, yell at their neighbor, hey, did you see what Erik wrote? And they have a discussion. They can't do that from where they're sitting. But social media, instead of doing one to many, does many to many. Mm-hmm. And this is where a lot of traditional media still gets hung up. They still want to do one to many, and they don't want to do many back to one. What's happening is it's one to many, and then it's many to many. Did you believe he said that? Can you believe that? And then they shout back at me on Twitter, and I hear it. And they shout it to everybody on Twitter, and they all hear it, and they shout back. And now, as me, as the one, I'm getting all kinds of messages, good or bad. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been the kind of the big blessing that social media has brought, is it's taken down that expectation of you can't talk back to me. Mm-hmm. Now you can.
If I were a company and I wasn't yet engaged in social media, what are maybe 3 things you would, either the rewards, the risk, what are the 3 things you would want to make sure that I was aware of?
The reward is that your customers will like you. The risk is that if you're not on it, they're going to talk about you and you don't know it. Honestly, the risk of being on it is that it can, if you don't do it right, it can be a big money and time waster. It's a matter of doing it right. It's not just playing on Facebook. And we tell people when that's one of their objections, oh, we play on Facebook with it. Well, then you need to talk to the people who are going to be using it. Mm-hmm. If you can get them to not play on Facebook, and you can get them to do their jobs, which you trusted them to do anyway, mm-hmm. This can be a big thing for you. But at the same time, for that small business owner who is accountable to no one else, I get sucked into Twitter, and a project that takes me a half hour now takes an hour and a half because I'm playing on Twitter. And so there is some of that. That's a risk too, and I have to have the discipline to shut things off to be able to get it done.
In your new book, No Bullshit Social Media, what has been the most either surprising response or common response that readers have read that they've either tweeted to you about or communicated to you through social media about?
The surprise has been the positive reaction. Not that we thought people were going to hate it, but I thought people would say, yeah, it's pretty good, I like it. Kind of that lukewarm response. And we've gotten a lot of responses from people who have said, this is freaking awesome. I love this book. I'm recommending it to my friends. We've had mass media professors buy this or not buy it for the class, but they make the students buy it. This is their textbook. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it's gotten so popular that Pearson has been asked by some accreditation or somebody, can we change the name to No BS Social Media for a textbook version mm-hmm. of the book? This is getting into college classrooms because the professors want to teach this kind of thinking. I'm surprised, and I'm pleasantly surprised by the overwhelmingly positive response we've gotten. We've had a few people object to the name, but this is a name that adults have heard, and it's fine if they don't buy it because we've got plenty of people who think it's just great.